Meanwhile, the older son was in the fields working. When he returned home, he heard music and dancing in the house, and he asked one of his servants what was going on. "Your brother is back," he was told. "Your father has killed the fattened calf we are celebrating because of his safe return." Well, the older brother was angry, wouldn't go in. His father came out, begged him, but he replied, "All of these years I have slaved for you and never once refused to do a single thing you told me to do. And in all that time you never gave me even one young goat for a feast with my friends. Yet when this son of yours comes back after squandering your money on prostitutes, you celebrate by killing the fattened calf." His father said to him, "Look, dear son, you have always stayed by me, and everything I have is yours. We had to celebrate this happy day. For your brother was dead and has come back to life. He was lost, but now he's found." So the younger brother takes off with a fortune from the house, goes over to, lives in Miami Beach for a couple of years, and does the wild thing over there. And wouldn't you know, he runs out of money, finds himself moving from Miami Beach, where he was so cool, to living homeless in the Everglades. And he's watching, and every now and then he sees a gator, and he says, "Even the gators eat better than I do." And he's hungry. It's hot. It's miserable. He's getting eaten alive by bugs, and he's scared by snakes. He says, "I'm going home. I'm going back to Naples." Because mom's cooking, the family table, all of that is so much better than this mess that I'm in now. I just want to go home. I just want to go home. Not some great spiritual awakening. Just home. Home. Which, when we think about it, all by itself has a deep and profound spirituality to it. Home. Home is family. Home is not a place, as we all know. Home is an experience of belonging. It's being welcomed. I FaceTimed yesterday with my youngest, Amy. She's due this week with number 2, little boy number 2. In the meantime, watching little Christopher, who just turned 2 years old, and running around moving from one thing and the other in the backyard, so busy. And I asked Amy to show me how she looked, and it looked like the little boy was standing up inside of her, way out. And I just thought, how wonderful, how sweet, how very powerfully wonderful. It was a picture to me of home. Home. And so we all have that. We all have those experiences where we return at Thanksgiving or at Christmas time, where everyone comes down and the house is full of those warm, sweet aromas. And there's so much joy that you laugh a little harder than the joke requires, than the comment requires, because it's home. It's family. It's friends. It's familiar. So he comes home. The father degrades himself socially. He doesn't do like a good Jewish father should. He instead runs out to meet the boy, goes out to meet him, welcoming him home, and calls upon the servants to throw a party. So the party's going on. It's underway. And everyone is loud and happy. But then there's that dutiful older brother who's out in the field, and sweat and dirt are running off of him. He's been working hard, and he hears this party going on, and he hasn't even been invited. He didn't even know about it. He was the last to find out. He's walking back, and he's wondering what's going on, probably wondering, why don't I know? Why am I always the last to know? Comes back and sees what's going on. And that is that they're having this big party because this brother of his, whom he doesn't call a brother, he calls in relationship to his father, this son of yours, has come back. And he's angry. Angry. And he won't come inside. He won't come in. And so once again, the father goes out. The father goes out to him. Once again, the father breaks all the rules of social propriety, goes out to him, and starts to beg him to come in. You know, what is this about, these two brothers, but how to live life? How to be happy? What is real happiness about? How do we get from here to there? How do we get from a place where we are just experiencing life, and then we want to really live life? And there are many ways, but maybe they can be broken down under two general categories. One is this pursuit of self-realization, of finding oneself. Of finding oneself not in relationship to roots, not in relationship to family, but in relationship to the world. Going out into the world and experiencing life and taking it all in, jumping out of airplanes and riding a motorcycle to Calgary, Alberta, or doing all this stuff to find oneself in relationship to the world. That's one way. Maybe the other way is what the older brother does, and that is he, rather than pursuing some sort of self-realization, which to him is a bunch of psychobabble stuff, instead he stays home. He plays by the rules. Somehow all of the traditions and rules, regulations, all the morality and social conventions, all of those things that he has inherited and that he knows about, all of that is for a reason. And so he lives in conformity to expectations, with an understanding that if he just plays by the rules, things will go well. If he does things as are expected of him, things will be just fine. So we have in this household, and those of you all who've had kids know how this can be. In one household of the same parents, you get these wild, crazy differentiations of kids. And so it is in the same household. You've got one going one way and the other not even going at all, but staying home, staying close, doing things just so. And those two worlds, those two approaches to life clash in this story, in this parable. And rather than asking the question, which is the right way, we ask instead the question, what is the father going to do with these two boys? What is the father who represents God in this? What is the father's position toward these two approaches to life? The father goes out to the younger son. The father goes out to the older son. The movement, the direction of the father is the same. It's always his initiative to bring them back in. It's his initiative to bring them home. His initiative to make them feel like they are loved no matter what. So the father takes that kind of initiative in spite of how they live. And the older son, who has done everything as has been expected, somehow believes that he is in sync with his father, that he is the good kid and the other is the bad kid. He's the one who's done things right, the other one has done things wrong, so he thinks he's in sync with his father, that he is in compliance with the rules of the household. Michelle, can we put that picture up? Once again, this is Rembrandt. And I know it's a little dim, it's a little hard to see, but just a couple of things I wanted to point out. One is you can see the younger son embraced by the father. And his left foot, the sandal has come off. His head is bald. I guess in Miami Beach that was the style. But he's cut off all of his hair. He's shorn himself of his Jewishness. He doesn't even look like a Jew anymore. He doesn't even look like a member of the family. But he's embraced, and you can see his head is next to the heart of his father because he's been broken and he has returned. The older son stands in the shadows. And you can barely see, but his hands are folded. The father's hands are embracing the younger brother. The older brother's hands are embracing each other. He holds himself off. He separates himself away. He also is lost. He also is separated from his father. He also cannot enter into and participate with the joy that his father is now experiencing at the return of his son. Thank you, Michelle. And so both sons are prodigals. Both are lost. Both sons need to come home. Both sons need to come back into full relationship with the Father. And the father goes and begs his older son, begs with him to come home and to come in to celebrate with them. And as this parable ends, we don't know the outcome. We don't know if he ever breaks down. We don't know if he, in his sense of self-righteous self, if his self-righteousness ever allows him to find the humility necessary to come inside and to celebrate. But think about this. The older brother and the younger brother are known. The party is everyone in town. When they threw parties, no one was left out. Everyone in the village or in those small communities, everyone showed up and everyone was there. And it is evident, self-evident to anyone who's there, that the younger son has squandered much, but has come home and is being welcomed. And if the older brother came in, he would be viewed as being associated with his father. He would be viewed and recognized as the one, if he comes in, who is with his father co-hosting this celebration. If he comes in. If not, then he also needs to be pursued. But the intention is that they all might be brought in. Remember the story of the parable where some workers in the vineyard come and they're working all day long and they get a promised wage at the end of the day, and then at the end of the day, with about an hour left to work, some guys show up at the very end and they get the same amount of pay as the guys who worked all day. And it sounds just horrible, like what kind of what kind of economy is this that God is presenting to us? But the point of the story is that those who came early in the day were privileged to work in the vineyard of God all their lives. And then there are some who only know that joy at the very end. And so the understanding is that to be in the household of God, to be participating in the household of God, and to be doing His work with our lives, that's where it's at. That's where joy is found. That's where happiness is realized. Not in mere conformity, and certainly not in mere rebellion, not in doing all of those things that have me as the focus, but in doing those things that has God as its focus. Lord, what must I do? How might I live? What is the best way for me to live this day? How might I make my unique contribution to this one life you've given to me? What might I do this very day? I've shared the story before of Winifred Vignes, this magnificent woman of the church. She was head of the West Texas Museum in Lubbock, Texas. And she was an elder in my church in Lubbock when I was at First Presbyterian. And she told the story of how she was waiting to get on her flight on an old DC-3 flying out of Fort Worth and coming back into Lubbock, and waiting in that hot, sweaty airport with all these soldiers in there. And soldiers, because they were soldiers, got on the plane first, and all civilians had to wait until after those guys got on, military men during the Second World War. And sure enough, her plane is there, and she's waiting to get on, and she gets bumped. She doesn't make the flight. She has to wait for another few hours for the next plane to go out. And so she sits back down in the terminal, and then maybe an hour later, a voice comes on over the loudspeaker and says that that plane flying from Fort Worth to Lubbock has gone down. And everyone on board was killed. Everyone was lost. And from that, she had this poignant realization that her life had been spared. And she said from that day forward, every single morning when she got up and would pray in her morning prayers to God, why am I here? What must I do? How can I live this life to honor those who died instead of me? How can I honor your son who died instead of me? Therein is life. It's not found in Miami Beach. It's not found in Arizona. In those self-realization searches, it's not found in always wearing the old button-down collars and doing everything just so. It's found by nurturing our relationship with our Father, who loves us and embraces us and declares that we are with Him and in Him. Home. Home. Will you bow with me in prayer? And Lord, for this gracious truth, for this ultimate reality, that we are loved, and that your Father runs out to us to embrace each of us and to bring us a sense of what it means to belong. May we as your children, O Lord, reach out to one another, embracing others always, demonstrating the love that you have first shown to us. We ask this in Jesus' name.